Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And you are currently listening to A Chance to Strive. And I'm your host, of course. So basically, today there are a few things that I feel like have been very consistent in my life, consistent conversations I've been having with a lot of people that I'm surrounded by. And I feel like I'm kind of going to speak on some of those topics, but at the same time, I'm also going to respond to some of you guys' questions. Some of them are questions that I didn't get through from last time. And then some of them were questions I asked. I think the last poll I did was like, give me some things that are controversial. I forgot the exact way I framed it, but basically things that we're probably not constantly discussing. And I was like, I think it might be a good take just to kind of like discuss things that aren't so popular or whatever you guys decided you want to talk about. And I think the very first one that I think I'll just knock out, it's because this is a pretty simple one. And it's one that I believe is very much factual. Someone said everyone should have access to therapy. It's beneficial to all people. I'll very much admit that a lot of people think you go to therapy when you can't deal with exactly what's happening. But at times, I think a therapist can simply be someone that offers you validation for how you think in terms of like the validity of it. Because I feel like a lot of the times it's like, for me, I know a lot. And I feel like I research things and I actually know things that are factual. But it's still a lot of the times, it's kind of like if I was to argue with a fifth grader. They're not going to believe everything that I'm saying, whether it's right or not, because of the lack of information that they have. They just don't have access to enough that I do, which was why I come to certain conclusions. And for me, it's like I went to a therapist, and that's funny thing is like I don't seem like somebody who would need it, but I don't think it's something you need. Like, I don't think there needs to be a need for it in order for you to tap into it. I think there's something beneficial we can all get from it. And the thing is, it's like you don't know everything that you are dealing with. The same way you went to your mother in certain moments when you knew she knew better. We all grew out of that and shit like that. I completely get it. But at a certain age, when you couldn't do certain things for yourself, you went to your mom and you asked your mom or your dad or whoever was around, someone that you trusted that knew more than you. A therapist will literally always be that person. No matter how much I believe that I know about myself, they know more in terms of like how to decipher things, how to break things down, where this is coming from. There are certain connections they can help you make. And I feel like one thing that we all avoid is like, oh, I know how to deal with my adult issues. Yeah, but that little kid inside of you might be struggling with something that you're not necessarily aware of. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like there's always a benefit. There's always a plus to be able to access someone who knows a lot of shit. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And a lot of us aren't willing to learn things that we don't think we need. I try and figure out things. I'm like, I may not need this, but I'm going to try to tap into it. I'm going to try to research things like this might be a possibility. But a lot of people don't understand this idea of like, this might be something. We don't know what might be until we kind of stumble upon it. When you're talking to therapists, they can listen to everything you're saying. They're like, I see some commonalities in here. You should really start thinking about it. Oh, and I know this because I do this for a lot of my friends. It's like once I'm around them enough, I start seeing certain patterns. But not everyone has this mindset where I'm trying to piece this together. I'm trying to find patterns in everything in my life. I believe that everything is connected. Not everyone thinks this way. So for me, I'm constantly looking for connections because I believe something completely random could apply to something that you weren't even thinking of. So it's like, the random connections you can make at times from things that are complete polar opposites from each other, at times they reveal the most. Because why is there commonalities between things that are so different from one another? So that's kind of like the reason why I kind of say it's like there's nothing wrong with having a therapist. And I feel like it's looked down upon for men. And I'll kind of like speak to us, our gender real quick. Bro, we make up majority of suicides. So it's one of those things where it's like, we need the help the most, but for some reason, it's society kind of tells us it's like you're weak for tapping into this shit. I don't think it's a weak thing to prioritize your life and say, I don't want to die and I don't want to be part of that statistic. I'm not saying it needs to be more even because then that just means more women die, but I want the numbers in general to kind of like decrease. Like, there's no reason why a lot of us are being lost to suicide when in reality, I'm not saying everything can be solved with a therapist, but I think at times all you need there for you is someone to listen. And if you can't find a friend that listen, go to a professional. And I know therapy can be a pain in the ass when you're trying to look for free therapy, that of this, that of that. Bro, there's a lot of resources out there. And just like anything you want in life, anything that's crucial, It may take time to find it. It may take time to kind of get to it, but just don't give up on that process. It's a way for you to love yourself. Investing in yourself is you showing yourself love. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like, just be patient. And I understand that a lot of us feels like time is running out, but you're literally always one opportunity from figuring things out. The majority of the times, I'm not saying figuring life out in general, but whatever is that big burden you can't get past, just be patient, and certain things normally work out. Okay, so somebody was talking about that if he loves you, he wouldn't be doing that. I think this is, like I said, it's just things that are controversial, things that we're speaking on. So basically just that quote is like, if they loved me, they wouldn't do so and so. As much as like, I completely believe that when someone truly understands what love is, there's certain things you just don't do to someone you say you love. But at times, I don't believe that love trumps everything else in life. There's someone that could have been dealing with some traumatic shit experiences where they've been dealing with this since they were 3. And now let's just say they're 20. That's 3. Okay, it's pushing it. Let's just say they were dealing with the shit since they were like 7. Like they could recognize what this was, what this experience had meant to them. And then now they're 27 and they still haven't healed from this shit. I get it. It's not nobody else's fault that they didn't figure this out. But shit happens. Life happens. Not everyone follows the same trajectory. Not everyone heals the same way. Not everyone's process is the same. So you can't blame someone for the fact that they didn't get to something that they weren't aware of. You can argue they should have known, but there are people in their 50s that are still dealing with certain pains and traumatic experiences from their past that they didn't get overcome. Guys, women, anything within that spectrum, just to make everyone feel included. But it's just like people's lives at times are a lot more important than the love they have for somebody else, just because of the impact that these experiences kind of had on them. There's certain women where it's kind of like they don't realize that they have a toxic relationship with sex because they had terrible experiences. So they never had the chance to kind of like be able to decipher, why do I like sex this way? Why do I only give it to him when I'm like in the greatest mood or when he makes me happy? It's like, why can't I pull my emotions away from sex at times? Sometimes it's like, it's not the person's fault. They should be taking control over healing. But if you're with someone and they haven't done it yet, now you're in this situation with someone who's unhealed. And if you truly love them, you're going to be willing to dedicate some time to their healing process. At times, it takes you being able to not take things personal. I think that's my whole entire reason for saying all of this shit. At times, you have to not take things personal, because a lot of people's like, you say you love me, but then you did this. Yeah, but because the person has been struggling and dealing with this shit their whole entire life, just because they loved you for a year doesn't mean they're going to find all the answers about life and their healing process through that love they have for you. The love they have for you could be that thing that makes them understand, like, this is an issue. I need to get this sorted out because it's affecting them. And I believe with love comes patience. With love comes hurt, comes tears. Everyone's going to hurt you. And I've heard this quote, I don't remember where it was, but it's like, everyone's going to hurt you, but you're going to have to choose the person that's worth being hurt for. And I think that's just admitting the fact that love isn't this thing that's colorful constantly. Like there's certain married couples that are like, that are 50, 60 years in, and they're like, yeah, I probably had a few years where I didn't like them. Like collectively, I'm not saying that he will say, some of them even say that like for 2-3 years, I didn't like this person. I loved them, but I didn't like them. But then it's like, they all tell you, it's like, they go through this shit, and it's like, to them, it's not such a big deal. Cause it's like, to them, love isn't something that's simply a feeling. It's a decision. It's a commitment. I'm not just going to give up on you because you made mistakes. We're all bound to make mistakes. We're all bound to slip up to something. You can have your boundaries for whatever it is that you will not tolerate. I'm not saying it's like, oh, because you love this person, you got to be understanding to everything. Have your boundaries. Have certain things where it's like, okay, this, I can't move past it. It's okay for you to be that person. You dictate who you want to be and what you want to tolerate. But all I'm saying is there are moments where you love someone and it's like they do certain things that affect you. And not everyone can just tap into perfection. By that, I mean, not everyone is just going to simply just, okay, it affected you, I'm learning. It just doesn't work that way. Yes, the person shouldn't do the exact same shit in the exact same manner. but one flaw can make you fuck up in 50 different ways. I'm not saying let the person get through 50, but maybe by 5, 6, 7, this is when they're starting to truly understand what it takes to fall out of that pattern. Not once or twice and you're like, I bet I'm tapped out of this shit. And I feel like so many people, we're just so used to being able to give up so quickly, where it's like you don't offer patience for the person that you're with. And for me, I'll say this, anybody who's in a relationship in your early 20s or early teens, whatever they may be, the couples that make it past those ages and find longevity into their 50s, 60s, they're the ones that are willing to be patient with the flaws that someone is working on. Because the thing is, like, as great as I may be as a person and my emotional intelligence, the things that I'm able to understand, I have my flaws and I am in a relationship now, right? If this woman is willing to walk away from me anytime she sees my flaws show up, do you really think we have a chance of making it through shit? We don't. I mean, I can't figure as much shit out right now because it's like I don't have access to all of the information. I don't have access to all these life experiences that somebody else may have figured out and they can possibly offer someone perfection. Perfection, I'm not saying they become perfect, but in a way where it's like their flaws aren't affecting the other person. I just can't give you that. I can't tap into perfection early as shit because I love you. If you can offer me patience, I will constantly learn and I will constantly try to adjust myself and compromise for you. But the idea that, hey, I love you, you shouldn't be doing anything to hurt me, it's just little Disney Channel way of loving that we have in our minds. It's just not realistic. Someone is not going to meet you when they're 17 or 23 and not hurt you. It sounds bad, but it's like, it's just being realistic. And at times I feel like we're not really realistic enough about things, and we hold people to these expectations that are just ridiculous, because it's like you're gonna affect that person, and when you have all of these standards and boundaries that it is that, I'm not saying don't have them. Set your limits. I respect it, but be a little patient and understand that at times you only look at these things as though they were so terrible because of your experiences within your past. Like there are certain people where they're like, I am not ever going to forgive someone for lying to me. People lie all the time. It's not something that's uncommon. Some people are willing to tolerate it. It's like, I understand your reasoning for it, just don't do it again. But there's certain people that are very firm on that shit. Like honesty means everything to me. But if you look in their past, anybody that's ever lied to them didn't care for them. They didn't appreciate them. So they attach lying to not caring. When at times somebody may have to, I'm not going to say they have to lie to you, but they may have to butter up the truth in a way you don't appreciate it because they do love you. So things aren't always as it may seem, I guess I shall say. And this is the thing, is like knowing that someone generally loves and cares about you and take advantage of you. Okay. I'll say this. When you come from a certain place, when you're in a certain space or in a certain mindset where you're not that emotionally aware of how rare certain things are to come across, you may take advantage of it, and it's fucked up. A lot of people, it's like they get very complacent. Oh, you love me, you care for me, you forgive me, so I'm just gonna assume that you're always gonna give me a pass for this bullshit. And it's like, I will never, as much as I say, it's like sometimes you have to be patient, especially when you get in a relationship early. You have to offer the person time to learn and unlearn certain things. I believe patience is needed for love. But I don't believe that anyone should say, I'm going to let myself be taken advantage of until he learns or until she learns, until they figure it out. It's one thing to make mistakes and affect the person that you're in love with. It's going to happen. There's not a couple in their 50s, 60s that are going to say, it's like, I was never affected by some of the actions that they took. Even if the person has you on their mind and they try to make this decision off of you, it takes time to truly learn someone. So it's not something where it's like, I'm in love with you, I know exactly everything to do perfectly. Nah, something's just going to rub someone the wrong way. And that's the time you get to learn this about them. It happens. But for you to allow yourself to be taken advantage of just because it's like they didn't know any better. That's true, but constantly taking advantage of you is something that's completely different. To watch this person be hurt, crying, that, and you're like, fuck it. especially if they are true to their intentions and they are true to their dedication to love you, then I think you truly have a lot to learn. And one thing I'll say is it's like at times it takes a loss of something amazing for us to value it. It's just natural. You know, it's like if you think about someone who can't even think much, right? Like let's just say monkeys normally used to being given like 50 bananas daily. They may eat one and have it halfway done and just toss it, move on to the next, because I have an abundance of it. You know, like I constantly have this. It's not that it's not important, but it's not that valuable for me to prioritize maintaining it because I know every single day 50 is new is being added. But now imagine the monkey's getting one a day. They're probably going to eat the skin off that shit and not a single one is going to have anything left. So at a certain point, it's like when something becomes scarce, then we believe it's like, okay, I got to maintain this. Whole reason why when you have a shit ton of money in your pocket, you may be someone who just knows how to budget and it means a lot to you. I get that. That's not what the fuck I'm referring to. You got 50 bands in your account, like 50K, decent amount of money, right? You're probably gonna buy certain things at times, and the total is too much. Probably might not be doing that, but you go from that, and then you have $1,000 in your pocket. Now, because you don't have as much of it, you're thinking about how do I save this? How do I try to maintain this as much as I possibly could? So it's one of those things where it's kind of like, at times you have to show someone your value. A lot of people that are in love, they stepped away from each other and then they found their way back. But at times it's like that breaking off for a few. Now this person has to realize all of this shit that they no longer have access to. I bet I lost this 50K. I'm down to 1K. I see how important, how valuable it is. The next time I get it back to that point, I'm going to try my hardest to maintain it and not make those same mistakes. At times, walking away is teaching someone how to love you because you're telling them it's like you have to prioritize all of this shit. It's not always going to be there. You can easily lose it. And for someone to deal with having so much and then having so little, the next time you tap back into it, you do look at it from a different mindset because now it's like you're not as gullible to think, I'm never going to lose this shit. How to get rid of your sneaky link now that you know your self-worth. Okay. I feel like I see sneaky link shit so much, and I'm not gonna lie, I get it. In my past, I tapped into that shit a lot, but I'm gonna be very honest to like sneaky links and all of this little extra shit. A sneaky link should not be someone you struggle to let go of. It should be something that's around to be convenient. You know, it's like I feel like we get too involved with sneaky links and shit. It's like soul ties are very much a real thing. When someone has access to your body and everything like that, y'all are being intimate together, that, and y'all can lay down in bed and he's not just leaving right the fuck off right after it happens. Certain things just start to happen. What I notice about sneaky links is it's like we get very comfortable quick. At least I notice with people that are a little bit younger. If someone is your sneaky link, they should serve a purpose of being someone you sneak around with for links, and then that's about it. But a lot of the times it's like, when we see our sneaky links, we have these conversations. We take time out of our days. How you been? What's been going on? That. You're risking so much by doing that. And there's nothing wrong with a sneaky link. I hope you understand. Like, that's not a thing. But be smart about the type of relationship you're forming and what your expectations for it are. Because for me, it's like, if I'm expecting someone, we're just having sex and that's about it. You should not be coming over and we're getting deep in our days. If something is wrong, you're telling me about it. Because now that ruins the whole purpose of what we're doing. This is why I realize a lot of relationships, especially early on, starts off lust. Because it's like the sex is there. It's great. You start to enjoy it. And then you get very fucking comfortable with the person that's around. Like, your sneaky link should not be spending the night. No, but it's late. That's not their purpose. Like, because now it's like, now you're doing shit you should be doing in relationships, but you're adding it to a sneaky link bond. And now your brain starts processing all of this shit. And now these emotions you have for this person, they start to arise because it's like, you're not treating this shit accordingly. If they're here just for sex, allow your brain to process that information as that, okay, when we're feeling horny and when our hormones is boosting up, I call this person, they handle it, and then they leave. So now there's nothing about, I was in a cuddly mood. I was this, I was that. Bro, just Maintain that shit. And for me, how do you drop a sneaky link? Just be honest. Because the thing is, a sneaky link is not a relationship. It's not something that, it's not a commitment. It's supposed to just be convenient. So if it's at that point where it's like you healed, you want to move past it, just be like, I'm not going to hold you. Don't take this personally, but I just don't think I want this anymore. And it's not about the sex. It's simply like, I just want more. And no, you can't be the person to offer me more. I just don't look at you in that way. And I completely respect that you probably don't as well. You never take a hit at someone. Always make it seem like it's neutral. Because a lot of people, they will get in their feelings. It's like, and start taking shit personal. It's like, bro, it's not worth it. Like, I don't want this no more. It's not about you. It's not about me. I simply just want to take a step away from this. I think I'm in a state where this isn't something that's necessarily that beneficial to me. Great sex, but I want to walk away from that shit. Okay. 50-50 ain't necessary in relationships. He wants to be the provider. Let him. If she wants to be the provider, let her. I always say this. It's like, I feel like we get so stuck on this should be that so much because we hear certain things on social media and whatever is the most fucking popular. We tend to think that, oh, this is right. This is what I should abide to. There's certain women, believe it or not, like there's certain men out here that are just stay-at-home dads. They love it. Do you think that woman looks at them like any less of a man because of it? No. Like, I'm the one that's career oriented. Maybe we need someone to be at home, and her career is the one that brings in the most amount of money. So you're like, all right, we're going to have to be realistic. I know I'm the man, but you can be the provider and I'll be the nurturing dad, and we can just switch our traditional roles to one another. As long as it works, it's about your dynamic, bro. You're not going to please everyone. No matter how you try to do shit, someone's always going to go against it. But for me, that's why I say in relationships, form a two-handed circle. You don't go out there and vent every time something goes wrong. Because maybe you may realize you were overreacting, right? But your friends don't think that. And even when you go back to them and be like, oh, I was tripping, I was this, like he didn't really do this, X, Y, and Z to me. Now you've left a bad taste in that person's mouth about your partner. I don't think people should have too much access to the flaws of your partner. You talk them up that it is such of that. But if that's not the case, you don't constantly need to go to your village. Hey, this happened. I can't maintain my emotions. I need to talk to somebody about it. It just doesn't have to be that way. Take your time. You can talk to your village as a distraction. And when you're ready and you're calm and you're collected, go talk to that person. And I also don't think it's like if you're venting about your relationship to someone, it should be someone that's trying to look to maintain whatever you have going on. And what I mean by that is like whoever you're venting to shouldn't constantly take your side every single time. At times, that person needs to be a reminder of like how great your partner is. He does this, he does that for you. Don't you think you're kind of being unfair? Because for me, it's like it doesn't make much sense to me that I'm gonna go to some of my friends that I know are always gonna be on my side when I'm venting about my woman. Because if they're taking my side on every little thing that I bring to them, how do you think they look at her? They look at her as someone who does X, Y, and Z to me instead of they should understand how amazing she is. So that way, when I go to them, they're like, bro, but you got to understand she's going through this. She's doing this. So it's like you have to be a little more patient with her. Now it's like this person offers insight. They don't just simply offer validation for what the fuck I'm thinking and my fuck shit. That's why it's like if I know someone's always going to be on my side about something, I don't go vent about my relationship to them because there's nothing beneficial I can get. And I don't need to be right in my relationship. Like, that's not what I'm valuing. I value compromises. Like, are we on the same page? That's all I necessarily care for and shit. Mental health is a reason, not an excuse. I'm gonna applaud for that real quick. Because I feel like we are in a generation where it's like, it's so easy to point out to people's flaws. And you know, it's easy to point out flaws because narcissist is very much like a thing that's so common. Everybody calls narcissist. Like, you do something wrong that's very shitty on your part and you're a man, you are a narcissist. It happens so fucking often to the point where it's like, I've seen a psychologist literally comment, it's like, bro, I'm a therapist. And it's like, y'all can't just call everyone a narcissist because they do something wrong or because they cheat out of this, out of that. One thing doesn't equate to the other. But the whole mental health is a reason, not an excuse. I love that because I feel like a lot of the times it's like people always, I feel like whenever you're going through some shit or I hear about, oh, I was dealing with some things like I did X, Y, and Z, but I don't think there should be buts when you did something because of your mental health. For me, it's like if someone was in a good mental space and they affected the person in such a manner, they would feel this way. Just because you weren't in a good mental space and you affected them in the same manner, it doesn't mean they're going to feel any less of those emotions. My thing is, it's like, it's okay for that person to be a little bit more understanding to you because you weren't in a great space and you probably weren't in full control of your actions and your emotions. But at the end of the day, they were affected. It doesn't change that it wasn't intentional. Intentions only matter to you, not the person that's affected. So for me, it's like, it can be a reason to describe some shit, but you still have to be able to hold yourself accountable. And I think my thing is just kind of like when someone tells you how much your actions impacted them, if you realize like this wasn't my intention, I really wasn't trying to do this, I was in a bad mental space, that the fact that you were in a bad mental space is not your answer to them. It shouldn't be your response. It should be one of those things where it's like, I wasn't in the right state of mind. It wasn't my intention to do this to you. But seeing how my actions affected you, I know that there's something that I need to deal with in order to maintain control so that you're not hurt in this way again. So it's one of those things where you have to acknowledge both sides. Yes, I wasn't in full control, but I can't risk this shit happening again. So now the fact that I affected you, it's kind of like a wake up call where it's like, bro, get on your shit, tighten the fuck up. Because that excuse can be cute once, but are you constantly going to keep on bringing it up? I wasn't in a great mental space. I had to do this. I don't have control over this. I ended up doing this. At a certain point, that person is just going to get sick and tired of having to be understanding because you're dealing with mental health issues. There's nothing wrong with dealing with mental health issues. And like I said, patience at times has to be offered for relationships. But you can have boundaries set in place for certain things when it's so frequent. Because it's one thing for someone to not be in full control and for someone to not recognize how their actions is impacting you. But how many times do you have to allow them to fuck up before they learn about the same shit that you're bringing to them? At times, your relationship reveals the shit that you truly need to deal with. But someone can't offer you access to what's wrong, and then you ignore it, and then when it happens again, you're like, oh shit, my fault. I wasn't in control. I didn't deal with this. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If you're dealing with some shit and you know that it's affecting your partner, work on it. And if it's something you can't work on, I think you have to let that person go. Because as much as your mental health matters and people should be patient and nurturing to you when you're dealing with these things, someone can't constantly put their emotions to the side to be there and babysit you. At the end of the day, you have to take control over fixing your own bullshit. And if you can't, there are certain flaws you have. If they are affecting the other person, I don't think the person should offer you patience for it. Because now you're telling me to be with you, I have to constantly risk getting hurt. I don't think that's fair. So somebody asked, hey Chance, okay, so my question for the podcast is, how do you navigate through the dating scene after having a year of self-healing and rediscovery of yourself? And how would you put yourself back out in the dating world? I think the biggest thing is once you've healed so much and you've dedicated a lot of time to yourself, I think one thing that I had to struggle with was I needed to realize that, especially if you did this at an early age, not everyone taps into their healing process as early as you do. So it's one of those things where you may have to be a little bit more patient to the people that you come across. But I'm saying offer patience to others and shit. But there's also another part of the picture where you need to understand that giving people access to you is something you should treat a lot more vigorously. because you're not the same person in comparison to what you used to be in the past. You're a lot better, which means your value has gone up. So the type of people you keep around you, or the type of people you allow to walk into your circle, there should be higher standards set for them. Because if you're someone who had 5 skills, you got paid $20 an hour, fine. Now you have 15 skills. Should you accept getting paid the exact same amount? No, because your value went up. You should allow anything that walks into your life should kind of equate to that. So for me, it's like, after you've healed and you've dedicated so much time to yourself, understand that you can't keep the same motherfuckers around you, because anyone who's not on your level, they risk you taking a step back into your growth process. It's like, you can't become this person that's moved on from X, Y, and Z and then go around people that indulge in X, Y, and Z. For me, if I stop smoking, and that's one of my biggest growths that I've made, I'm not saying it is, it's easy to think about. Why would I now be accepting new friends that are potheads? There's nothing wrong with those people, but now they put part of my growth at risk, because I'm more likely to fall back into those bad habits, and I don't want to do that. And the part about putting yourself out there, I don't think you should put yourself out there. I think you should just be more open to the approaches and be more open to just things happening naturally. Because I think the more we try to force things and the more we go out there and look for something, the more we're likely to make wrong decisions, right? It's like somebody says you shouldn't go grocery shopping if you're hungry. You shouldn't go looking for relationships if you're lonely. It's the same concept. What the whole entire analogy is trying to break down is, when your need for something or your want for something is so high, you're likely to take something that's a lot less, simply because it works. It fills the purpose, even though it's not perfect, nor is it what you truly deserve and what you should be getting. Like, it's just one of those things where you have to be very, very careful about looking for relationships when you're in a position where you feel like you need one. For me, I always think you should look for relationships when you're in a space in your life where you're happy. If you're looking for a relationship in a time where you're sad, nothing is really happening for you, it doesn't take much for you to find comfort in someone. Because as long as they offer a bit of happiness, you're going to go for it thinking, this is what I need right now. It's not. So for me, it's like, don't go out dating when you're not in a good space, and just let things happen naturally. And there was another thing I seen that I think I want to talk about. I seen this from I follow this psychologist. He makes content. It's actually funny as shit. I'm not going to lie. And then it was like a question that I hear very often. It's like, he was like, doctor, why do I always attract narcissists? And then he was like, you don't attract them, you tolerate them and you accept their behaviors. And I think a lot of people are not normally happy with this shit. But this is the thing, right? Narcissists are individuals that can at times exhibit very similar characteristics and similar traits. All it means is, it's not like these people are just the greatest at keeping themselves hidden. Some of them that are true narcissists, yes. But there are a lot of individuals that we call narcissists, and it's like, they just have bad flaws that you tolerate. A lot of the times we don't have boundaries that are set in place to make sure we don't get taken advantage of. If you know you're someone that's likely to forgive people and try to give them benefit of the doubt, you need to create a system in where you can't get taken advantage of just because you're so kind-hearted. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm very kind and I don't like hurting people's feelings, and I don't like leaving them when they're in a space where they need help because I wasn't offered that. You got to tighten the fuck up. And one thing I've realized also is, like, when you're someone who thinks you can handle everything, I'm going to offer some insight on what that could be. When you think you don't need nobody else, it's like, fuck everyone. A little insight on what that means for you. You're probably someone who wasn't really that focused on when you were a child, and you were left to meet majority of your needs on your own. You know, just a little gem that I'm giving to y'all and shit. But it's true. I realized I was somebody that I don't feel like I need anybody for anything. But why do I feel that way? Bro, because I'm somebody who literally can handle everything that's been thrown at me, because I've had to do it for so fucking long. My mom had to focus on the two that were more problematic. I didn't let a lot of things on my own. I could handle this shit. So when I got older, I never felt like I needed a partner for something, because the person that I had the deepest bond with, my mother, I didn't need her to satisfy any of my needs, even though that was the woman that I was in love with in the moment. It's a different type of loving, but it's more so it's kind of like the idea that I trusted her to do things for me. But even then, I handled the majority of my shit by myself, so it just didn't matter to me. How do I leave him alone instead of seeking his love and his rejection? How do I leave him when I'm not wanted and when I'm not appreciated? That was kind of like the same question that they asked in two different ways. I think the reason why we try to love bomb someone, even when we know they're not appreciating everything we're doing, is because we blame ourselves when something goes wrong. And I feel like a lot of the times, if you're a kid, right, and everything was normally blamed on you, you start to take things very personal. And I know I'm somebody like this, right? When something went wrong, it was just my fault. Or at least that's how I internalized shit, because I was the youngest. I should be the person that's least problematic and everything like that. At times I'd be in a relationship where it's not my fault. But because I wasn't someone who could fix things when I was younger, I now took it onto myself to fix things even when I'm not the one to blame. It's like, maybe, and we start to have this mindset where maybe if I gave them more, they would love me. Maybe if I did this differently, they would love me a little bit better. Maybe it's my fault that they're not giving me the type of love I deserve. A lot of it comes from a lack of appreciation for ourselves and how much we are truly worth. Because you shouldn't believe that somebody not loving you properly is your fault. I think you can say I've had my part in this and I had certain flaws that made it harder for this person to be with me. But someone being a shitty lover to you isn't a reflection of the love you deserve. And I think that's the reason why a lot of us try to stick around even when we know we should be taking a step back. It's like, well, maybe I could have done more. I don't know why they don't love me. Why they're not giving me access to this shit. It's not about you. The way people treat you at times is a reflection of themselves, the type of love that they are capable of giving. And at times we blame ourselves because it's like we don't understand how we are this individual that gives them X, Y, and Z, and they're not even able to give us the bare minimum. We start to devalue ourselves when we start thinking the more I do, the better they would be. It doesn't work like that. When somebody loves you, they should be able to exhibit that love for you. Just because you have flaws doesn't mean you're any less deserving of love. Yes, maybe you need to work on certain things and be a little bit better, but I don't think you should simply accept that you're the reason for the love that you were given. You're not at fault for anything that happened to you. And I know a lot of us probably won't ever believe that shit because of how we were raised and the shit that we were bashed for, but you're an amazing individual. You're an amazing vessel. You shouldn't hold yourself accountable for people's mistakes and for the way that people treated you. And also, just because you were treated a certain way when you were a child, it doesn't mean you have to accept the same type of love when you're stepping into adulthood. Because I know a lot of people, it's like you were bashed by the person you were loved. They called you names out of this, out of that, but they still loved you. Some people feel responsible for loving you, so they do it. But it's not how tough love is one thing, but degrading someone that you supposedly love, it's not right. And parental love is very different from the love you get in a relationship. When you're in a relationship, you have that power to be in control of the type of love that you accept. You don't have to say, I am not in control. I'm just going to let this person love me because I was loved like this in my past. It worked. No, in the past, you couldn't control or request certain things from your partner. Now you can. You don't have to accept the same love that child that you used to be despised at a certain point, but then grew to accept. Don't become complacent in the love you receive and accept just because it's what you had access to in your past. It's okay to evolve and want things to be different. Your dad used to bash you, and now you're dating a man that at time calls you a bitch, that at time degrades you. And you're like, well, my dad used to do this shit to me. I can handle this shit. It's not about what you can handle and what you're equipped to deal with. At times you just have to say, this is not it for me. I want more. It's okay to want more. It's okay for you to try and heal from the past traumas you've had. And if you can recognize similarities in the love you're seeking and the love that you used to get from your parents, if the love you got from your parents wasn't necessarily healthy or that beneficial to you, I think you need to do a little bit more healing before you look to fall in love. Because there's a lot of flaws and faults that we at times fall in love with just because we grew up with them. And trust me, I know this. I know so many people that are dating people with exact same characteristics as their mother, or somebody who has the exact same flaws as their father, because you internalize that and you think that's what love is. You get to define love for yourself. Your past experiences it's not something you have to get stuck with. Boundaries while dating. I think boundaries need to be communicated, and if they're not, you can't just get mad at someone whenever some shit happens, because it's not fair. I'll be very fucking honest. And I watched this this video by this I think it was like a marriage counselor, and they said one of the main reasons that they have found for divorces in their experiences, it's uncommunicated expectations, which means, if we're breaking it down based off this question, there are certain boundaries that a lot of people have, but it's not communicated. I don't want this person to do X, Y, and Z, a boundary that you set in place, but you don't communicate it to your partner so they understand, how the fuck do I move accordingly to love you? And then it's like somebody does some shit. What the fuck? Why would you do this shit? Like, da 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 da. And it's like, wait a fucking minute. You never told me this shit. I feel like, and this is my thing, it's like, once you see something be so common and it validates the way you think, you just expect everyone to operate that way. I promise you, being someone who's been in relationships with multiple people, it hasn't even been that much, right? And I have access to this. So I don't think somebody in their 30s should be saying this bullshit. You should have known. No, the fuck they shouldn't have, bro. People want to be loved in very different manners. There is someone where it's like, bro, don't touch nothing in the fucking kitchen. That's my shit. A man could say that if they're the ones that are cooking. A woman could say that if they are the ones that probably be cooking majority of the times. And there's someone that's like, for love for them, it's like, it's acts of service. So they want you to be there helping anytime you see them walking in to cook. It's not something they want control over. But there are certain people, you have control of this, I want to have control of that. It's one of those things where it's like, this is just how they function. You don't have to teach someone how to love. I understand what you're trying to get at, but you do have to understand that love isn't a one fits all type thing. You have to teach someone how to love you properly. You don't need to teach them the values that have to go into play when it comes to love, but there's certain things that people aren't gonna fucking know unless you communicate it. And you have to understand, there are a lot of delusional motherfuckers out there, which means somebody's experiences on loving people could be from a delusional shorty, a delusional man, which means they expected things that were completely out of norms. Like, it just wasn't ordinary. So when they start loving you, they're having to relearn shit. And the things that may be common knowledge to you or things you think should be very easy to get, it's not that common to them because they haven't experienced it. They haven't been around people that operated this way. Bro, like, and this might be even funny to you. It's like, from a traditional household, right? The woman normally serves the man. I've been in Haiti where we're very traditional and shit. That's just a common thing. Like, I'm talking about, like, the adults, they will bash you if you are in somewhere with your man and he has to be the one that sets his own plate, that it is, that. To them, that's what they know, and this is a way to show love. And I watched someone say why some of them actually operated this way. It's like, bro, when you have to understand it from back in the day, especially like this is a colored woman describing like why she did this for her man and why she noticed a lot of women did this for their man. She was like, a lot of the times back in the day, it's like our men were treated like they weren't shit. We got to stay at home. When they were out there in the world and they were working, they couldn't be in part of certain buildings. Why couldn't they? They weren't accepted. If this is a white only place, and majority of the times that were the better place because they had more funding and stuff like that, they couldn't walk into those establishments, the ones that look nice. They had to deal with the bottom of the barrel shit. Society treated them like they were shit, like they didn't matter. So for them, they were like, when my man comes back home after dealing with this world that's telling him he ain't shit, now I get to tell him that he's important. I get to serve him to show him that he's deserving of these things. From that perspective, it makes a lot of sense when you add some context. But a lot of people that are in modern style of dating, they'll probably say, it's like, are you a servant? Why the fuck are you making him his plate every single time? And it's like, this man could do so much for you. And this is the thing, roles could be reversed. So this woman could do so much for you, but then your mother's, and it could be flipped too. It's like, I'm someone, let's just say I'm making her plate that of this, out of that. And I have my modern mother looking at this shit. Or my aunts, where it's like, they're very traditional. That's a modern mother. My traditional mother, or my traditional aunts, sisters. If they look at me constantly making her a plate, they might have something an issue wrong with it. Cause it's like, this is weird. Why isn't she doing that? But the thing is, it's like, she could be doing so much other shit for me, but that's not their priority. A lot of people are going to judge you simply based on what they think should be. So it's one of those things where it's like, your dynamic has to be, you have to worry about your dynamic. Other people think the way they love, because it worked, this is how it should go. But they don't realize, it's like, bro, your dynamic worked because you and this person abided to it. If I'm not with a woman that wants to be someone who's constantly serving me, who's always handling shit in the kitchen, I have to abide to that because I have to compromise. When you're making a pact, a two-handed circle in your marriage or your relationship, it's about what you guys want. I communicate what I want. You communicate what you want. And if there are certain things that don't fall hand in hand, we don't just go with one person. We find a way to compromise so both parties are happy within this decision. Because at the end of the day, it's like, if I'm making decisions that make you upset, why are we in this relationship? I'm not saying everything we do is going to make each other happy. Some things are going to have to change, and sometimes we may have to go with what one person says. But both parties should be able to say, okay, I can work with this. I think that's my thing. Like, that's why it's like, a lot of people's like, oh, your man can't tell you how to dress. Shouldn't there be a compromise of some sorts? Like, yeah, I'm aware and dressing whatever I want, but maybe he gets a say in this because, let's just say y'all are married. You carry this man's last name. You're a representation of who he is as a person. And if it doesn't align, I don't think y'all should be together. And that's why I think a lot of people confuse compatibility and just things that just work. Y'all have to be compatible. Y'all have to want the same things. Y'all don't have to be exactly the exact same person, but y'all have to have this common goal that you're all working towards. And normally there's a lot of different paths you can find to that, but y'all have to find these two paths that kind of are compatible with one another. I appreciate you guys for listening in. Thank you for everything you guys have done for me in terms of like just being able to listen to me and give my words value. I appreciate you guys for 130K. You know, I like hitting these numbers, you know, seeing the high downloads and shit. I'm like, damn, I'm no song. People like what I'm saying. Y'all download these shits. But I know that doesn't even mean listeners, so that number's probably even 10 times more or whatever the fuck it could be. I just want to say it's not necessarily about the number. It's just, I'll be very honest. The number is just a little bit of validation to say you're doing something right and people appreciate something about you. So it is very much one of those things where it just fuels me personally. It's like, I'm doing something right. So I appreciate that. But overall, I do want to say it's like, I appreciate you guys in general for offering me a platform that offers value to you guys. And no matter where you're from, trust me, I appreciate you. If you're someone from, and I've seen my demographics of people who listen to my podcasts, it's very spread out. And I actually really love that. I'm not going to lie. It's the fact that it's like knowing I'm speaking to people from different cultures, different backgrounds and everything like that. And y'all are still giving me value. I know I'm doing something and I'm learning how to do things properly. And I'm learning to be a little bit more, how do I say this? Someone who's not just one dimensional, if that makes sense. So I appreciate that. So once again, thank you for everything you guys have done for me. Thank you for 130,000 downloads. That little kid in me that wasn't really offered much value for the way he thought, the way he went about things, the things he wanted to learn. Y'all are validating him a lot and y'all are offering him a lot of value. So in a way, this is kind of like an additional boost to my healing process and the things that people kind of put me through in the past. So I'll always be grateful for shit like that. I'm always going to admit that this means a lot and it adds a lot of value to my future, because I do want to be the type of person where no matter where I go in my life and no matter what route I end up in my career, I want to be a mender of hearts. And the more I learn how to counsel people and guide them through their growth, the more I can have an impact on people the way that I want to. So I appreciate you for listening. The episode is coming next week.